The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Feeling broken, barely holding on, but there's still something so strong somewhere inside me, and I am down, but I'll get up again. Don't count me out just yet. I've been brought down to my knees, and I've been pushed way past the point of breaking, but I can't take it. I'll be back on my feet. This is far from over. You haven't seen the last of me. You haven't seen the last of me. They can say that.
Good evening. Welcome to Girls Night In. I'm your host, Holly Dress On, not Holly Dress Off, the queen of thinking out of the box. Where there's a will, there is always a way. I am joined with Palm Beach County divorce attorney, Jaimie Karras. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. This is the second part of a three-part series when we're talking big words here. Starting with a big D, divorce. So, some pretty real conversation we had last week, and I really would just like to address my mood and my tone of last week. I'm right, for those of you that have been following on the show, or for those of you that are just tuning in, I am right smack dab in the middle of the big D, okay? I'm in the middle of a divorce, and it's been a very interesting process. Okay, last week we talked about a couple of different things, and I noticed I was pretty quiet, Jaimie, and
yes, you were.
And I didn't realize how vulnerable I really was going to be. And so, as I do every day, I try to be a better version of myself than I was yesterday, right? And I prayed about it, and I thought about it, and I really wanted to continue doing this series. I really believe in pushing forward and being a trailblazer. And going through this divorce is making me be that woman, and more of a woman than I really ever thought that I could be. There's lots of trials, tribulations, questions, concerns, worries, and all these different emotions come into play when you're going through a divorce. And, I was approached about, well, maybe this isn't the right time for you to do this, Holly. Maybe you should wait until you've already gone through the divorce and have it. But why would I want to wait? I know several women that are in the midst of a divorce, can't wait for it to get finished. I'm very active on social media. Facebook is one of the platforms that I use to try to stay connected with people. And I just recently posted a meme that says, I bet divorce cake tastes way better than wedding cake, right? And so I know that I'm not the only woman that feels like that, or man for that matter. And we're going to be talking about some juicy conversation this evening, right? We're going to be talking about time sharing, talking about therapy, also talking about name changing. So we're going to go ahead, and I'd love for you to reintroduce yourself again to the listeners in case this is the first time that they're tuning in for the second part of the three-part series, right before the holidays when time sharing and all these things are relevant. So please, Jaimie, introduce yourself and tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. First, let me just start by saying last week the energy between us was very alive. I had a lot of energy coming in, very talkative. We had great conversation. And there was a lot of information I was giving last week as far as information for people considering the process and getting started. I would have to say tonight's mood for me is one where I can see inside of your mind right now, sitting here looking at you. There's some wheels spinning. There's a little bit of a different mood.
You see a fire? Do you see flames coming out of my ears? Because I'm on fire. I'm hot tonight, baby.
I see you as hot, and I'm feeling quite calm and quiet, pensive, and so we'll see how the energy between us moves tonight. It'll be an interest. It'll be great no matter what it is.
Yeah, it'll be great.
So for those of you that are listening, I am a family law attorney in Palm Beach County, actually in the state of Florida, so all counties, but my main practice is in Palm Beach County. I am also a certified family mediator. And my practice really is one where the clients that I have and that come to me, I attract. I adore my clients. They adore me. There's a lot of mutuality between us. I think I practice very differently than a lot of other attorneys, ones that I am friendly with, ones that I come up against. And I think I'm quite different in that regard. But that's not what we're here to talk about tonight. I really want to answer whatever questions you have for me. Any questions that anybody may have. Also, people can feel free to email me any questions they may have at jdfamilylawfirm@gmail.com. My practice is JD Family Law, and my private cell phone number is 561-859-1479, and feel free to reach out to me in any way that anybody would like to do. I'm very approachable, very friendly, and always look to help people the best that I can. Divorce is a process where we get married, and we go into that marriage really thinking this is it. And there's a lot of mutuality and growth, but there's also a lot of times that there's a feeling of being stuck. And it's time to get unstuck, and sometimes we have to break, and we have to break into many, many pieces. And then it's all about putting it back together, and it takes a long time. It's a process, and there's no rush in putting it back together. Find support. You doing a show like this to help support other people going through the process. This is brilliant. This is wonderful. Happy to be here. So let's get started.
Well, I normally start the show off by really setting the intention of pulling these affirmations. I scroll through Pinterest often, and before I go to sleep, just having these little pictures. I like color, and I'm a visual learner, so that's how I read. I'm also a writer. And so we pulled these cards. We have no idea what the other side says, so I'd love for you to go first and see what your affirmation says.
Oh, it's a short one. Oh, this is great. Realize how good you really are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We really are pretty good.
We are pretty good.
Yeah. We're better than good. We're better than average. We're better than we think we are.
We are perfect. We are imperfectly perfect. We are perfect just the way we are.
Agreed. And as I just got done sipping water from my wine glass, I really love water in a wine glass. I order it when I go out all the time. Anyways, mine is super short too, but it says, my affirmation says, count your blessings. And I do that every day. Instead of, going through this process has been just that, a process, ups and downs and roller coasters. And I've learned to really try to revel in the roller coaster of this divorce, and I have to get up in the morning and count my blessings. I do that more and more every day instead of repeating that same sad story. A lot of women, we talk about divorce, and that that's the only thing that we're going through. And I'm not going to speak for every woman, but I've learned to not talk about that. When people ask how I'm doing with the divorce, I'm blessed. I don't want to reach. I'm so tired of hearing that story, because and I know you've been divorced before too, right?
I am.
So this is my second divorce that I'm going through.
I'm a one-time winner.
Well, there you go. I'm not going to say. I'm
That's
just going to
okay.
say that.
And divorce truly is. Some people look at it. Oh, how terrible! And I remember when I first said, "Oh, I'm getting divorced." Oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, "Oh no, it's a blessing. It's
Amen.
It's a start. It's a second chance.
Absolutely.
Chance.
And so a couple of topics that came up this week for me, not personally, but people that have reached out to me, and we're talking about time sharing. So
and it's the holidays. Great topic.
Exactly. How do you spend the whole day with one parent? Do you split it half a day? Do they go on vacation? I mean, I went through this, the first day of the kids had school, my husband, I love that word, husband, soon to be
I do-
ex-husband.
I do not
husband.
like that
I
term.
do. I
I'm
think
sorry.
it's fun. I think
don't.
it's fun, and it's okay.
okay.
I'm not here to make you happy.
We're not married to any term.
Yeah, I think
We're
it's
not
fun.
married to any term. but-
So
okay.
so anyway, so he had all the kids for the first day of school, and I've taken the kids the first day of school for as long as they've been alive. I have 4 kids, and so it was interesting. So now we're approaching the holidays, and how does that work? And the in-laws and all that stuff. So how do you go about talking and even trying to come to an agreement on time sharing regularly during regular part of the year, but now the holidays are approaching? How do you approach that?
So let's break it down to 2 different categories. One would be we have no agreement in writing. We have filed a petition for dissolution, or we have discussed that we're going to proceed with a divorce. We know we're no longer living together. We're separate and apart. But what are we going to do about the kids? That would be the first part. The second part would be we are now attending a mediation. We're several weeks away from holidays, or we're even 5 months away. How do I set up that settlement agreement, that parenting plan, to maximize the time that each child gets to spend with a parent? Now, you'll notice I didn't say maximize the time that each parent gets to spend with the child. It's how does the child maximize? How do we work this for the kid? Because a lot of parents are selfish and they're only looking at what works for them. Mm-hmm. So having said that, let's look at the first option. There's nothing in writing. And you're considering how are we going to just work this out as an agreement among us. So first thing as I have to say is your children did not choose this. They didn't choose to come into the world, although we're not going to go down that road. Yes, we've all made a choice to go there. We won't take the spiritual path, but your children didn't choose to come into the world. You are their parents. And they didn't choose for you to decide to no longer be under one household. So having said that, how can we best work a time-sharing plan around the holidays for the kids' benefit? And that can look like, first off, who's the family in town? Which mom or dad? Who has cousins visiting? Where are the children going to have the best time? Where are they going to feel the most secure and most joy? Which parent is more stable at the time? Which parent is having a harder time and feels that the holidays are a terrible time and they're crying all the time? The kids do not need to be around that. So
True.
So having said that, set them up for success. If you're feeling lonely and you don't have the kids for the holidays, you know what? Go to the library, rent a book, read, watch movies, do what you need to do, because time sharing is not about you. It is about your children. So what you can do is, what some people do typically is they will be Christmas Eve with one parent, and then Christmas Day with the other, switching times, sometimes either 10 a.m. or 3 p.m. Pick the time that works for you. Split the day in half. There's another mind here, another thought that says for the children, the holidays are really about off of school and time to unwind and relax. And if you think of yourself as a child, if you can close your eyes and go back to your childhood, would you have wanted to be waking up in the morning, have the joy of opening your presents, and even if there's one gift under the tree, whatever it is, even if there's no gifts under the tree, just knowing that you have the day to spend and just, whether it's playing video games, of course we didn't have that as kids, but playing video games, reading a book, lying in bed, having your friends over, spending time with your family, whatever it looks like for your child. Okay, sorry, Johnny, Dad'll be here at 1 o'clock. Move it. And the kid is like, really? There's a sadness sometimes that will come over the kids. There's a feeling of, do I really have to switch? Do I have to go back and forth? And I think parents need to just reflect on that a bit. Those are just things to take into consideration. If you already have an agreement that you've prepared or you're considering preparing, time sharing during the holidays is split typically in the state of Florida. Your standard rotation is going to take a holiday break when the children are in school, and it's going to divide it in half. Children are going to be with mom or dad the first half on even or odd years, second half, and it alternates back and forth. One parent's going to have Christmas, one parent is going to have New Year's. Also within that agreement, and I've I have put these agreements together myself, where I put ages for the children. When the children are younger, they're splitting the day in half for Christmas. If both parents, if it's important to them, they're splitting that day in half. As the children are getting older, or certain ages, the parents are going to consider the needs of the children a little bit more, and they're maybe not going to do the swap at a certain time period. So there's a lot you can take into consideration when you're thinking of how to spend the break. And those who celebrate Hanukkah or any other holiday, we have 8 nights. So in that case, usually there's pretty much a division anyway. But it's working out what works for your kids. It really is.
Well, yeah, I mean, I imagine that every client has a different issue. I know I hear, oh my gosh, I'm in the middle of a divorce, or I'm in the middle of this terrible divorce. Well, and as we talked about last week, it doesn't have to be a terrible divorce.
No.
There can be this nice, calming divorce.
It's the goal.
Would love to be able to have that. And I'm doing that on my end. I'm learning a lot about myself. I'm learning a lot about being a mom and the direction that we need to continue to move.
We can only control ourselves.
This is very true. And, thank you so much for sharing about the time sharing. I also was approached this week about therapy for the kids and family members, the husband, the wife, or the mother, the father, and is that something that you recommend for your clients, or is it just on a particular situation? How do you,
It's case by case.
Yeah.
And when your child will come to you and tell you they need to talk to somebody, listen.
Yeah.
If your child's coming to you, listen. State of Florida, there's shared parental responsibility typically. That will mean that medical decisions, educational decisions, religious decisions, those are shared by the parties. So if you know going into your divorce that your spouse is very anti-therapy and the children have a certain need, you'll want to set that up or attempt to set that up as a sole decision-making. So you can still have shared parental responsibility with sole decision-making authority for medical decisions, or sole decision-making authority with respect to therapy. But when you are hot off the press and you have no agreement, you're going to do what's best for your children, and you're going to be motivated by that. The hopes is you'll be motivated by that. And not always are parents on the same page. And I will tell you, in my own divorce, and I always refer back to myself, my divorce is final. I'm several years in to being divorced. I do not have, I can't say I don't have a typical divorce. I mean, there's ups and downs in mine. I don't have what I would consider co-parenting. There's a lot of single parenting going on in certain aspects, although we try our best. We do not see eye to eye on many, many, many issues. And going back, I would have set up my own marital settlement agreement and parenting plan quite differently if I had to do it over. Mm-hmm. But I let a lot of that go, and we work things out, but not always can people do that. But what I would have to say with respect to that is I myself am encountered with one parent believing in therapy or medication, one parent not. So when those issues come up that both parents are not on the same page, what you're going to do is find yourself in front of a judge, and a judge making those decisions for you. And it's always what's best for the children. What do my kids need, and which parent is motivated not by their own interests, but by the interests of their child.
Yeah, and
it's not always an eye-to-eye things. Both parents don't. And what I think people need to understand, too, is the parent who is parenting the child is parenting from their own hurt. They're parenting from the level that they can understand and where they're at. Their own wounds. It's all going to come up. In the divorce, it's all going to come out.
Well, one of the things that I've been experiencing myself is this truth thing.
Tell me more about that.
The truth.
The be comforted. Is that the thing?
Well, I would, and this is how I'm raising my kids. I've been down that road of, not telling the truth, at some point of my life, and I've learned lessons, right? So I do my best to transpire that to my kids, okay? And the the lying. Okay, let's just be real. If there's any lying going on between the kids, the mom, the dad, conversations that are being had, is that where you go to therapy? I mean, how do you work all that out?
First off, kids are going to manipulate. This is when they have two separate homes, they learn so quickly how to manipulate and play the parents against each other. And I don't think the idea here, if I just kind of close my eyes and think of it, I don't think this idea here is to teach your children truth and not truth, because children don't really, I think, develop that ability, different depending on the age of the child. But I think what you want to teach the children are the concepts that are healthy, the emotions that are healthy to experience, and what it looks like when a lie can get out of hand, and the spiraling effect and the harms that can cause. But kids typically, they don't really see things quite. Think about just your childhood. You don't see things really in a very colorful, or maybe it's more colorful as a child. It's very colorful. And once a child says a lie, I'm not a therapist by any stretch of the imagination. I just have 3 of my own wonderful children. And I will tell you, once a child tells a lie, they are really going to stick with that lie because they have a stake in it. And then depending on personality, you also have children. I have one in particular. He cannot tell a lie. I have one daughter, 2 boys. So talking about one of my sons, he comes to you and really wants you to know he's lying. He desperately wants you to know he's lying. It's a call for help. It's a call for help.
I can't lie. I have this my facial expression. I just can't do it. I've never been good at it, and not something that I try to be good at. But this truth thing, it's very important for me.
I think there's 2 things. There's one is telling a lie and being comforted by the lie, but that leads into a whole another conversation.
I'd rather be.
That's your.
I would rather be uncomfortable with the truth than ever be comforted with a lie.
Yes. And in our age that we are now, we can say that. But as a child, a little different perspective. But I think for children, another thing that exists, and also for people moving through a divorce, there's a difference between a lie, deceit, and there's a difference between just non-disclosure. Mm-hmm. And I will have to say, like myself, I'm not going to lie, but there are definitely times where there's non-disclosure. And that is very different. Children are not going to do the non-disclosure with you. Children are either going to be truthful or they're going to lie. I don't think they do the non-disclosure. But therapy is an important tool. There's also wonderful parenting coordinators and parenting experts, communication experts that can help the parents. Because when your child is lying, it's a symptom for them. It's a symptom they're expressing as a result of what's going on in the home.
Yeah.
So, right, they don't want to hurt mom's feelings. They don't want to hurt dad's feelings. It doesn't matter what mom or dad has done. I mean, children unfortunately, children can be abused, and yet they still will side with the parent abusing them. There's parental alienation syndrome. There's all kinds of things that children are unfortunately subjected to that have a part in what's happening. So yes, the sooner you can get them to speak to a therapist, and we're not talking bring them to a friend. Do not bring your children to a therapist that's a friend. It's not a good idea. Find a neutral party. And there's some wonderful family therapists. Another thing for children is somebody who really works with play therapy.
Play therapy.
Well,
that's interesting. I may have to look that up.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
I was recently having a conversation with a therapist I like very much, and we were talking about play therapy for children and children of divorce.
Well, I'm open to exploring new things, new healing for my kids, myself, my family. I just have this amazing energy exuding through me right now.
Yeah.
Like I'm super excited to be able to finally be moving forward. We know that, when you finally decide to get a divorce, it didn't just happen that morning. It's been, months, years, decades even that have been in the making. And finally you just say, you know what, enough is enough and I'm ready to move on. And, I'm ready to taste what that divorce cake tastes like instead of the wedding cake, right?
Wanting cake.
Well, right. So, so this play therapy, tell me about what is that?
I'm not going to speak on. I'm not a therapist.
Yeah,
it's not my.
okay.
It's not my specialty.
Well, I'm going to look it up.
So look it up.
I am going to look it up.
It's not my thing.
I got it.
But I do want to note, the lawyer in me has to make these notes, that when I'm talking about therapy, when you do have an agreement, you do need to have details in your agreement as to coverage, whether you're going to allow for out-of-network providers. If you're not going to allow for an out-of-network provider, the parties agree to split fees equally or in a pro rata share.
Yeah, we have to talk about this.
And there are so many details, and I have to tell you time and time again how many attorneys and mediators leave those details out, and you will be out a lot of money when your ex refuses to pay. And one parent wants those children to go to therapy, and they will spend thousands and thousands of their own money to get the therapy to just have the other parent do everything in their power to destroy it.
Yeah. Let's hope my divorce doesn't go that direction. We've been talking here for about a half an hour. We're going to go ahead and take a break. But before we go to break, I do want to remind you that before the end of the show, you can give us a call live. We are recording this live at 561-623-9421. My name is Holly Dress On, not Holly Dress Off. This is Girls Night In.
Ever since I was a baby girl, I had a dream. Cinderella theme, crazy as it seems. I always knew that deep inside that there would come that day, but I would have to wait, make so many mistakes. I couldn't comprehend as I watched it unfold. This classic story told, I left it in the cold. Walking through unopened doors that led me back to you, each one unlocking more of the truth. I finally stopped tripping on my youth. I finally got lost inside of you. I finally know I needed to grow, and finally my mate has been my soul. Finally, now my destiny can begin. Though we will have our differences, something strange and new is happening. Finally, now my life doesn't seem so bad. It's the best that I've ever had. Give my love to him finally. I remember the beginning, you already knew. I acted like a fool, just trying to be cool, fronting like it didn't matter. I just ran away, put on another face, was lost in my own space. Found what it's like to hurt selfishly. I was scared to give up me, afraid to just believe. I was in a jealous, insecure, pathetic place. Stumbled through the mess that I had made. I finally got out of my own way. I finally started living for today. I finally know I needed to grow, and finally my mate was with my soul. Finally, now my destiny can begin. Though we will have our differences, something strange and new is happening. Finally,
Welcome back to Girls Night In, live every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on W4WN. I'm joined with the amazing divorce attorney, Jaimie Karras.
Well, thank you.
And from Palm Beach County. She joining us for the second part of a three-part series. And I don't know why I have such a problem saying that. It's just, it doesn't roll off my tongue easily. I don't know.
The numbers.
Whatever. It's the numbers. Yeah. So over the first part of the show, we discussed holidays, time sharing, therapy, and this next part of the show, I'd like to talk about communication. Right. So now you have this in the midst of a separation or a divorce, and we're in the age of technology. We have smartphones and things like that, and there's texting, there's instant messaging, there's FaceTime, there's all these different things. And you have 3 kids, I have 4 kids, and doing your best to try to monitor everything that's going on, making sure they're doing right on social media, and now you have this conversation that they're having with the other spouse or other family members, and it was interesting because I came across this week myself.
Okay.
All right. And there was a conversation we talked about earlier about lying. Maybe the kids are lying, acting out, and doing these things. And there was a conversation that was had. And, here's the gist of it. Okay, I'm in the middle of this divorce and I am very vulnerable. So I'm going to do my very best to be respectful and also address the situation. Okay, this communication through texting of where you're talking about your husband or you're talking about your wife, and everything is in writing, and all these things, everything is traceable. Okay,
yes,
we've talked about these conversations about I forget the exact term that I was told about how to communicate with your spouse versus having a couple of drinks one night and deciding to do drunk texting. Obviously, that's not acceptable. So there's got to be another way that spouses or ex-spouses or whatever the terminology is, that you can communicate with your soon-to-be ex, and the kids can communicate with them too. So everything is I don't want to say monitored, because you have to have this privacy thing. How do you deal with this, Jaimie?
Oh, it's ongoing. It's every day, and it's difficult to monitor. It's difficult to control. There are ways to do that, but let's first talk about the we're out of control aspect. Your kids, depending on their ages, will, by court order, have contact with the other parent. That will indicate, depending on their age, whether it's daily contact. Sometimes it'll actually tell you what time the parent needs to be contact, how often.
What is this called?
It's just under communication. It's just an aspect of a parenting plan. The level of communication. It depends on the ages. Your children are older. It's not going to be in there. It's going to be at the will of the children, essentially.
Yeah.
How you're not supposed to disrupt the communication. There's all kinds of things that can be put into an agreement. You can be as specific as you want. You can be as general as you want. It's up to the parties. Unless the judge is doing it. If the judge is doing it, it's going to be communication is permitted. It's just not going to be as specific as to when parties enter their own agreement through a mediator or on their own. So essentially, it's very, very difficult to monitor. Kids will play off the parents. Kids will make one parent look bad to the other parent, thinking they're winning the parent's favor. I see it with my own children, and then one of them, I will have them remain nameless. One of them will snap the photo and then send me a picture of the text between them, making the other one look horrible. And then does the same thing to me. And what I typically say is, we're each doing the best that we can. And can you please not share those texts with me? They're not necessary. So it really just cut them off. And they're only just doing it for manipulation. But at the beginning stages of a divorce, a lot of this is going to come into play as to potentially best interests of the children. There's so many factors that come into a determination. I'm not going to go into that right now. Maybe we'll talk about that next week. But so many factors that come into determination of the time sharing arrangement and who the children are with or more and whatnot. So a lot of that really, it does come back and forth. But let's take away from the kids and let's just go with the premise that whatever is happening in your divorce is not your kids' business. Period. End of discussion. I don't care if your child is 5. I don't care if your child is 16. I don't care if your child is 17. It is not the business of your children to know why mommy and daddy have been arguing, what the financial circumstances are, who's doing what to whom. It is none of their business, because every time you cut a parent, you are cutting your child. So that. Now, I will, and I see you're raising your hand, and I'm going to do a footnote.
Yeah.
There will be one parent who persistently and consistently wants to badmouth the other parent, or a parent who has done things that the children need to be aware of. So, yes, within reason, there are things that you need to discuss with older children, but we need to be mindful that they're children and put yourself in their shoes the best you can. So I think that, and my voice may be changing because this is a touchy one for me.
I'm right there with you, Jaimie.
I experienced it. I lived it. I breathe it. And to this day, my children echo the things that have been said. It is ingrained in their brains. It has created tremendous difficulty. For me, I just step back, and eventually they'll see what they see. So I say that. But I think the key, and I know you want to talk, so if you want to say something, but I want to say the most important factor that to really hear is the communication between mom and dad. Okay, if there's no children involved and this is just a divorce and there's no kids that you need to communicate with each other, just block the other person. Be done with it. Move on. Don't let them in your lives and just move on. But when you have kids, you need to be able to communicate regarding the children. Typically, what the courts will order, there's typically several options. There's phone communication, there's email communication, there's text communication. You can check off all the various ways in which you'd like to accomplish communication.
Just for the parents, just for the adults? Is that
just for the adults? I'm talking. Got it. So if we're talking just the adults now, when we're dealing with patterns of human beings, what I see time and time again is there's one who texts or emails, and there's another who responds. And it's kind of like this battle that goes back and forth, and nobody's willing to just step back and not respond. Well, no response is a response, right? To me, it's a perfectly good response, not responding, unless it regards something about the health and welfare of your children, immediate concern. Now, when you have parents that are out of control in the texting and emailing realm and are blowing your phone up or demanding responses, answer me now, or calling you names, cursing at you, saying untruths. It doesn't even matter what it could be. It could be blah, blah. It could be Jimmy X. It doesn't matter what anybody's saying. The point is none of that is relevant except for what time are you picking up the kids from school? So-and-so has a doctor appointment. There's just nothing else that needs to be texted, right. But it will continue. There are court-ordered electronic communication means that you can get a court order for that. There's no more phone contact. There's no text messaging, and you will have to go through an electronic communication through the courts, and it's a monitored communication tool, and you can get a court order for that.
Well, I wanted to just go back for just a second. This communication thing is a really big thing here for me, and my family. I told you I have 4 kids. Communication is so important. It is. And so is non-communication in some aspects of the divorce, right? Because sometimes you just don't need to answer when they're, like you were saying.
No response is a response.
Exactly. And I may say this may sound a little bit bitter, but the power of an unanswered text. I mean, it's really it's impactful when you're not responding. Like you were talking about demanding answers, asking questions, and I just don't need to deal with that at this point of my life. And again, I'm right in the middle of this bad boy, and I'm doing the very best that I can. And I want to say that I have caught myself saying things in front of my kids. Okay? And like you're saying, you're adamant about it, and it is so true. I am guilty, and I am working on that.
And it's a constant. It's a daily work.
It is.
It could be an hour by hour by
my
hour.
goodness.
Because it's in you. There's anger. There's all kinds of emotions.
And the kids don't know how to deal with it. And I don't know how to deal with it sometimes. And he doesn't know how to deal with it sometimes. And there's just so much going on and all these changes. And I embrace change. I love change. And I didn't change for so long. I waited and waited for this to finally take this step forward. I talk a lot about pausing and reflecting and finally moving forward. And I've done that, yet I'm still working on myself, which I think all of us should do every day anyways, and be a better version of ourselves.
We get triggered, and there's nobody better than your own children and your spouse or ex who know how to trigger you.
But I think that I'm aware of it. Like I'm aware of this, and I'm doing the best that I can. And I have this conversation with my kids. My kids are between 10 and 19 years old. So some conversation I don't have with my 10-year-old that I do with my 15 or my 19-year-old, right?
Understandable.
But sometimes it does slip, and you're just like you're right in the middle of this. You're trying to figure out finances. You're trying to figure out.
It's stressful.
Yes. But it's also I'm using this as a growing experience. Okay, I've really had to take a step back and look at the bigger picture and what this is doing for my family, what this is doing for my kids, what this is doing for me, what this is doing for my future relationships. Right, because I'm still a young woman, and I want to be able to move forward and follow my dreams and my passions and learn new things along the way. So. The fact that I'm aware, though, it's been a big word for me this year. I've done a lot of changes, and I'm more aware of myself as a woman. I'm turning 41 at the end of the month. I'm really excited about
cake.
Well, not just cake, but doing this transformation for myself. Since the beginning of the year, I know that. I've done a lot of work on myself, getting rid of all the toxins in my body. I've let go of 40 pounds. I've decided to start surrounding myself with people that are lifting me up versus pushing me down, and which has also helped me take that step forward to going through with the divorce. And so I'm at a good place. Believe it or not, I mean, even though I'm right in the middle of this divorce, I'm really at a good place spiritually. I have my faith that I hold on to. I know there's a lot of women that are out there that just really don't know where to turn. And this is why I wanted to have this conversation with you. These are conversations that we're having with our girlfriends when we're getting together, but we're not having the expert advice from you. So thank you so much again for being with us, Jaimie.
It's my pleasure to be here.
And you're...
Listen, we're all human. We're all going to slip.
Yeah.
We're all going to do things. And it's nothing wrong with saying to your kids, you know what? I apologize for saying that. That was wrong of me. Do you know how many times I've done that? I've done that. We have to apologize. We're human.
But you know what I do a lot?
But
I apologize to myself in that mirror. I talk about this a lot. Instead of women going in the mirror and saying, oh my gosh, I don't look like I did when I was 20, or I don't look like I did 5 years ago, and I want to look like this, and I want to look about that. It really is about the thoughts that you're having inside of your head.
That's who you become.
Right. Instead of having this, oh my gosh, this sad story, my divorce is terrible. I can't believe he did this. I can't believe she did that. And all this stuff, pull yourself together and say, you know what, it is drama. And that's all you're attracting into your life. I really believe in the law of attraction, and I've done a lot of soul searching. I've done a lot of praying this last year. I'm a new Christian. It's been I still call myself a new Christian, even though it's been a little bit over a year. I've found myself, and I've also found myself moving forward, and that's one of the things that I'm proud about, and I'm proud to show my kids that I finally decided that, you know what, this toxic relationship that your father and I were in was not good. Not only was it good for you, but it wasn't good for him. It wasn't good for me, and we needed to move the heck forward. So this is why we're having this conversation.
That's why divorce exists.
Right. We're going to be wrapping up here in a few minutes, so I just wanted to point that out. We're going to have another show. Right. This is the second part in the 3-part series, and you're going to be again with us.
Right. So electronic communication is the way to go. If you could limit phone conversation, it's the best way, and also in writing. Have it in writing. But there's nothing. Listen, if when something needs to be responded to, and you also know when something is just to harass you.
One of the things that I've also learned through this divorce process is that you learn who your friends are. Okay, this is been a subject for me too. It's not something like, oh, hey, Jaimie, girl, guess what? I'm getting divorced. It's almost like a shameful type of thing, and everybody's going to have an opinion about it, and they're going to tell you what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and maybe not check up on you as much as you'd think you'd like them to. When you're quiet, when somebody reaches out, hey girl, you okay?
Right.
You don't have that as much as you did anymore. I've learned that I've some close people that I thought that I could count on just for moral support, or, hey, I need a shoulder to cry on or something, that person isn't always there, and I don't blame them, because, they've heard that story of, oh my gosh, my marriage is this, right? I mean, I'm looking at it from the other shoe. My marriage is this, and who wants to hang around all that drama? Everybody's got their own drama. Right. So that's where that's that work that I've done on myself is, look, you're asking me how I am about my divorce. I am blessed. And I don't think people are expecting that answer from me, which I've always been that type of person anyways. I want to give something for people to think about, that it's not always that bad, sad story that you have to tell in this divorce that you're going in. It can be a good experience, but you have to do some work on yourself.
That's where it begins.
Yes.
And not repeating.
Yes. Yeah. You go through life forward, you understand it backwards. Right?
Pardon?
You go through life forward, and then you understand it backwards.
Well, hindsight's always 20/20.
I know. And these little cliches that I talk about, they really mean something.
They mean something.
But some people that may not be able to understand that level, because people only can understand you at the level that they are, not at the level that you are, right?
Correct.
And this is that growth process that I'm talking about.
Correct.
So, again, I'd love for people to be able to reach out to you. Jaimie, can you just let people know what's the best place to reach you? I know you have some telephone numbers, websites. What do you got?
Sure. JD Family Law Firm at gmail.com. JD Family Law PA is my firm. I'm also a mediator, and my cell, you can reach me at 561-859-1479. Happy to speak with you. The other thing you wanted to mention, I think, didn't you want to talk about name change?
Oh, yeah, as we're closing out the show, right? So every woman going through a divorce is asked this question. I've asked hundreds of women, okay?
Yes.
Do you go back to your maiden name? Do you go back to the previous married name that you had? Do you go forward? How do you do that? And we've got short time to go over that.
Well, I'm not going to hit it from the emotional standpoint. I'm not going to hit it from the should I, shouldn't I. It's similar to asking somebody, should I get a divorce, shouldn't I? Your name that you take on when you're married, some women don't take on the husband's name. Some people hyphenate. Some people kept their name, or they changed their name. Whatever worked for you when you got married, you have a choice. The point is you have a choice when you get divorced to restore your maiden name if you took on your spouse's name. And if you choose to restore it, the time to do so is in your divorce, because you don't need to then file a separate action for a name change. You can be part of the divorce.
But what about if you don't want your maiden name? You don't want your previous married name? You don't want
this is not the time to create a new name for yourself.
Oh, really?
If you want to now be known as Holly Love, because I always love like Jaimie Love. If you don't want to be known as like Holly, Holly Love or something, no, you cannot become Holly Love in a divorce.
Really?
No, you're going back to restoring your maiden name.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're going to be doing a full name change.
You know what? This is a sensitive subject for me. I don't want to go back to being Oldham. I don't want to go back to be there. So this can be another conversation.
I'm here with you. I don't know. We have about 2 minutes, but here's my thing. I kept my the name of my children. It was very important to me, Karis, to have the name Karis. It wasn't the name that was important. It was the point that my children have that name. And I thought that too. You know what? I thought that was important. They're older now. I still sense some importance. And in fact, I had this discussion with my younger son recently about names. What's in a name, right? What's in a name? And I have to say, I have some of my own issue around that. I almost felt for a good 2 years that I didn't know who I was. What's my name? Who am I? And I didn't want to go back to my maiden name because I felt very disconnected from my maiden name.
It's a big decision.
So, right now, I'm sticking with Karis. If I change it, it will be when my kids are all over the age of 18, or maybe I'll keep it as another name. It'll become a second middle name, and then I'll create a whole new last name. I'll get remarried, and I would take on my new husband's name at that point.
I'm ready to move forward.
Who knows?
I'm ready to move forward. I don't want to go backwards.
I know, but the only thing is I am not married. When I use that expression, married, I am not married to the name that I have when I was married. I am married.
It's just a name.
It is just a name, but it's my children's name, and that's why.
Well,
I
you know
have
what?
it.
When you fill out those, when you go to doctor's appointments, they always ask, "Is this child? Do they have the same last name?" So it's interesting that question that's
But just
come up.
know that if you want to restore, the time to do it is in your divorce. Otherwise, you're going to be filing a separate action with the courts for a name change later on.
Okay, so we're going to close out. Just before we go, I want to let some people know there, just because the past didn't turn out like you wanted it to, it doesn't mean that your future can't be everything that you ever imagined. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on Girls Night In. I'm Holly Dress On, not Holly Dress Off.
Have a great night. I always say
On my feet, this is far from over.